Welcome to Whispers of the Ancients, a journey into the heart of forgotten civilizations. In this space of quiet reflection and wonder, we travel back through the sands of time to listen, to learn, and to remember. Let the echoes of the past guide us as we step gently into the world of those who shaped history long before history was written. Episode 15, The Ancestral Puebloans, dwellers in the stone approximately 200 to 1300 CE. Whispers of the Ancients. Ancient Civilizations of the Americas. Segment 1. The high desert awakens in the vast and arid stretches of the American Southwest, across the Four Corners region where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico converge. An ancient story unfolds. The land is harsh, sun-baked mesas, red canyons, and silent cliffs. But within this rugged landscape, a resilient and sophisticated people emerged. Around 100 CE, the ancestors of the Pueblo peoples began to build their lives in harmony with the land. These early communities, known archaeologically as the Ancestral Puebloans and once referred to as the Anasazi, a term now avoided due to its controversial meaning, developed an enduring civilization grounded in astronomy, architecture, and spirituality. Their beginnings were modest. Small pit houses dug into the earth, simple tools fashioned from stone and bone, and a life rooted in subsistence farming. But over centuries, these scattered settlements would evolve into monumental stone cities embedded in the very cliffs that surrounded them. This is not a tale of sudden conquest or empire. It is the chronicle of a people who grew with the rhythm of the earth and sky, a people who whispered to the stars and carved their history in stone. Segment 2. Seeds of Civilization. The Ancestral Puebloans were master agriculturalists in one of North America's most challenging environments. By 500 CE, they were cultivating the Three Sisters, maize, beans, and squash using intricate dry farming techniques and seasonal planning tied closely to solar observations. They understood their landscape intimately. Water was scarce, so they developed check dams, runoff irrigation, and reservoirs carved into the stone to catch rain and snowmelt. Their relationship with the land was not exploitative, but reciprocal. They gave thanks through ceremony, prayer, and respect for sacred sites. Domesticated turkeys provided meat and feathers for blankets, while cotton was traded in from the south for weaving. Food storage structures became vital, indicating not just planning, but social cooperation. This agricultural base supported population growth, leading to more complex social organization and eventually the rise of great regional centers. Segment 3. The rise of Chaco Canyon. By 850 CE, the heart of ancestral Puebloan culture beat strongest in Chaco Canyon in present-day New Mexico. Here, a cultural phenomenon blossomed, unlike anything seen before or since in the region. Massive, multi-story complexes known as great houses were constructed from sandstone blocks and timber hauled from over 50 miles away. Pueblo Bonito, the most famous of these, rose 5 stories high and contained over 600 rooms. Chaco wasn't just a city, it was a ceremonial, economic, and astronomical hub. Roads as straight as arrows radiated out into the desert. Some aligned to celestial events. The Great North Road, for instance, stretched across the Badlands with uncanny precision. The people of Chaco engineered complex buildings aligned with the sun and moon. The famous Sun Dagger site atop Fallada Butte marks solar solstices and lunar standstills with pinpoint accuracy, using light passing through rock slabs to strike spiral petroglyphs. Such knowledge required generations of observation. Trade flourished. Macaw feathers and copper bells from Mesoamerica, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, turquoise mined locally, became a currency of beauty and prestige. The Chaco network connected hundreds of outlying communities, creating a cultural landscape of ceremonial synchronicity. Segment 4. Art, symbol, and spirit. Art was more than aesthetic, it was a sacred language. The ancestral Puebloans left thousands of petroglyphs and pictographs across the sandstone cliffs. Spirals, handprints, deer, corn stalks, and shamanic figures whisper across the stone, each an echo of myth, ritual, or celestial observation. Pottery became increasingly sophisticated. Black-on-white geometric designs from the Chaco period gave way to intricate polychrome styles in later centuries. These ceramics weren't just for storage or food, they were cultural artifacts bearing identity, lineage and ceremony. Religion was deeply woven into daily life. Kivas, subterranean circular ceremonial chambers, dotted nearly every major site. Entering a kiva was symbolic of returning to the underworld, the place of origins in Pueblo cosmology. The sipapu, a small hole in the kiva floor, symbolized the portal through which the ancestors emerged into this world. The people spoke in ritual, danced with purpose, and watched the stars not only to track time, but to listen for the will of the cosmos. Segment 5, Mesa Verde and the Clifftop Legacy. By the 12th century, the cultural heart had shifted northward into the high plateaus of present-day Colorado. There, the ancestral Puebloans constructed some of their most iconic architectural wonders, the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde. Massive sandstone alcoves in canyon walls became home to intricate multi-story complexes, such as Cliff Palace, Spruce Tree House, and Long House. These structures, built without mortar, hugged the natural contours of the rock, blending seamlessly into the cliff face. Why this move to the cliffs? Scholars debate the reasons: increased need for defense, environmental shifts, or religious motives. Whatever the cause, the result was an architectural marvel resilient to time, wind, and gravity. Each dwelling contained rooms for living, storage, and ceremony. Kivas remained central, with masonry-lined walls, ventilated fire pits, and sacred cypepus, continuing traditions that had endured for centuries. The walls were often plastered and painted, evidence of ritual and reverence even in daily spaces. Mesa Verde's cliff dwellings stood not as isolated refuges, but as centers within a broader network. Nearby farming plots, reservoirs, and paths indicated vibrant community life, with cooperation essential to survival. Segment 6, The Great Migration. By the late 1200s, something changed. Across the Colorado Plateau, the ancestral Puebloans began to abandon their great settlements, Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and others, migrating south and east toward areas in present-day Arizona and New Mexico. What caused this mass exodus? Several theories exist: prolonged drought, spanning decades, likely stressed crops and water supplies. Resource depletion due to deforestation and soil exhaustion may have played a role. Some evidence suggests internal conflict or rising tensions with neighboring groups. But whatever the reason, it was not a collapse of culture. It was a transformation, a migration of identity. Communities regrouped along the Rio Grande, Little Colorado River, and Zuni River valleys, where they continued to build, farm, and worship, evolving into the modern-day Pueblo peoples. The movement was deliberate and sacred. Oral histories of the Hopi, Zuni, and other Pueblo tribes recount migration stories, journeys guided by spiritual vision, following signs and fulfilling prophecy. These weren't refugees, they were pilgrims. Segment 7, Legacy in Stone and Spirit. Though their grand stone cities were left behind, the soul of the ancestral Puebloans endured. Their descendants, the Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, and Tua, among others, still inhabit the American Southwest. They preserve language, ceremony, agriculture, and community life that echo with ancient wisdom. Ritual dances still mark the seasons. Corn remains central, not just as food, but as sacred life. Kivas are still entered and songs still rise to the sun and rain clouds. Modern Pueblo architecture retains elements of ancestral design, adobe compounds, central plazas, and ceremonial kivas. Art, too, continues the traditions of pottery, weaving, and symbolism passed down through hundreds of generations. The continuity is remarkable. Despite invasions, colonization, and forced assimilation, Pueblo communities maintain a living connection to their ancestral roots. Segment 8, Understanding the Sacred Landscape. To understand the ancestral Puebloans, one must think not in terms of cities or rulers, but of landscape as memory. Their world was not divided between the sacred and the mundane. Every mesa, canyon, spring, and mountain had spiritual significance. Petroglyph sites were not random, they marked visions, astronomical events, or sacred pathways. The Chaco road system may not have been for trade or travel, but for ritual processions. Their architecture was not merely functional, but cosmic in alignment. Even silence had meaning. The acoustic design of certain amphitheaters and cliff dwellings suggests an understanding of sound and space that enhanced ritual experience. This worldview of harmony with the cosmos and reverence for the earth challenges modern narratives of progress. It speaks of a civilization that measured success not by conquest, but by continuity, cohesion, and cosmic balance. Segment 9. Archaeology and rediscovery. For centuries after their migration, the stone cities of the ancestral Puebloans were left in stillness, visited occasionally by descendants, and eventually stumbled upon by outsiders. In the late 19th century, American settlers and explorers discovered places like Mesa Verde, Bandelier, and Chaco Canyon. Unfortunately, the early decades saw widespread looting and destruction, with artifacts removed and sold to collectors or museums. By the early 20th century, awareness grew of the need for preservation. Sites like Mesa Verde National Park established 1906 and Chaco culture. National Historical Park became centers for research and education. Archaeologists have pieced together the lives of these people from pottery shards, building foundations, pollen samples, and oral traditions. But it is the living voices of the Pueblo people that give the greatest insight. Their stories, preserved through generations, breathe spirit into the stones. Segment 10. Echoes that endure. Today, the story of the ancestral Puebloans remains unfinished, not because it ended, but because it lives on. Visitors to the ruins walk in the footprints of astronomers, farmers, and storytellers. Pueblo children still learn the old songs. Ceremonies continue on mesa tops and riverbanks, unbroken by time. Their message is not of vanished glory, but of resilience, adaptation, and respect for land, for spirit, for time. Their greatness lies not in empire, but in endurance, not in domination, but in harmony. And as the wind whispers through the canyons of the southwest, their ancient voices still echo, reminding us to listen. And so, their voices fade into silence once more.